He stood near the elevator with a small, smug smile as I walked past with security. People were staring, whispering, pretending not to. My badge was already deactivated. Just like that, I was out. Fired. No warning. No truth. Only lies and silence. But if he thought this was the end, he clearly didn't know who I was. A few months ago, I was the one everyone trusted. I'd worked hard, climbed up from assistant to operations manager. I knew every corner of that company. Every process, every shortcut. I didn't get there by being nice. I got there by being sharp and good at what I did. My promotion had come after I fixed a major logistics crisis in 2 days flat. People had clapped for me in the meeting room. My boss even gave me a bonus. That was before his son walked in. He came in like he owned the place. Technically, one day he would. His dad ran the company, so no one asked questions when he was suddenly named strategy lead. No resume, no background, just a fake smile and expensive shoes. He started joining meetings, talking over people, especially me. At first I tried to help him. I thought maybe he just needed guidance. But I quickly realized he didn't want to learn. He wanted control, and he hated that I knew more than him. He'd interrupt me mid-sentence. He'd rephrase my ideas and take credit for them. He made jokes in front of others, the kind that sound harmless but cut deep. Maybe we should keep things simple, so even ops can understand, he said once, and people laughed. I didn't. I smiled, said nothing, and took notes. Things got worse fast. Rumors started floating around. People who used to grab lunch with me stopped texting back. I found my reports rewritten. Tasks moved off my calendar. I knew what he was doing. He was making me look incompetent. But it was too quiet, too subtle, and I had no proof. I started keeping a personal log. Every strange email, every skipped meeting invite, every time he copied me on something hours after it was sent. Then came the complaint. HR called me in. He was already sitting there, looking worried, pretending to be uncomfortable. They said someone had come forward, said I'd acted inappropriately with. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. I looked around the room. No one smiled. They told me to take the rest of the day off. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, hands clenched. I'd done nothing wrong. But that didn't matter, not when the son of the boss points fingers. I realized something then. If I was going to survive this, I had to stop playing by the rules. He wanted a game? Fine. I'd play. But not by his rules. By mine. After that first meeting with HR, everything around me changed. I returned to work the next day, hoping maybe someone had come to their senses, maybe someone had looked deeper. But my keycard no longer worked for my old office. My nameplate was gone. A junior employee had already moved into my spot. No explanation. Just an email from HR telling me I'd be sitting in the shared workspace until further notice. No one said anything, but I could feel it. People moved away when I walked by. Conversations stopped the moment I entered the break room. My closest colleague, Jenna, who used to grab coffee with me every morning, suddenly avoided eye contact. I texted her. She didn't reply. I tried to joke about it once, lighten the mood, but she just gave a small smile and walked away. It was like I didn't exist anymore. Or worse, like I was something to stay away from. Then came the whispers. I'd walk past and hear my name followed by silence. In meetings, people barely acknowledged me. One of my reports was reassigned without notice. A project I'd been leading quietly disappeared from my calendar. The work I had poured myself into for years was being peeled away piece by piece, without a single direct confrontation. My boss, the man who had once praised me for saving the company million, now acted like I wasn't in the room. Emails I sent to him went unanswered. When we passed each other in the hallway, he looked through me like I was furniture. I knew who was behind it. I had no doubts. His son, now sitting in my meetings like he ran them, smiling like nothing had happened. I watched him from across the table as he pitched ideas I'd written, using slides I'd built. He was smart in one way. He made sure his fingerprints weren't on anything directly. Everything happened through whispers, assumptions, quiet reassignments. No confrontation. No proof. But I wasn't going to sit and watch my career burn down. I started documenting everything. I kept every email, took screenshots, wrote detailed notes after every meeting. I kept a private log on a drive he couldn't access. Every time something strange happened, like when a file I'd saved disappeared or when an email chain was suddenly missing, I made a note. I was building a record. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it, but I needed to keep hold of the truth. Then came the breaking point. HR called me in again. The woman across the table this time looked colder. She opened her laptop and turned it toward me. An email. It was nasty, unprofessional, full of personal insults aimed at him. And it was from my account. I stared at it. I hadn't written it. I hadn't even seen it before. I didn't send this, I said. She didn't answer. She just looked down at her screen, lips pressed tight. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights outside blurry through my window. It felt like the walls were closing in. My reputation was being destroyed, and I didn't know how far he would go. But I knew one thing: he wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to erase me, and I was done staying quiet. The final meeting felt different the moment I stepped into the room. The lights seemed too bright, the air too still. He was already there, sitting in the corner with a calm face, arms crossed like he was just another concerned observer. HR greeted me without warning. There were no pleasantries, no offer of water, just silence and then accusations. They said there had been irregularities in recent reports. Numbers didn't match. Data had been altered. My login credentials had been used to make changes in confidential files. I stared at them, confused at first, then angry. I hadn't touched those files in weeks. The edits they showed me were completely unfamiliar. I looked at him. He didn't even blink. He sat back, let the weight of the moment press down on me, pretending to be surprised by what they were saying. A small nod here, a concerned glance there. He was playing the part perfectly. To everyone else, he looked like someone watching a disappointing moment unfold. But I knew better. I tried to explain. I told them I didn't make those changes. I said I had kept records, backups. I asked for time to check my access log, but no one was listening. My voice felt small in that room. They had already made up their minds. The evidence, though fake, was too neat, too complete. Someone had planted it carefully. Then it hit me: he had hacked into my account. He had access to everything. Somewhere along the way, he must have gotten into my credentials, or maybe reset my passwords without my knowing. It wasn't just rumors now. He had moved from whispers to digital sabotage. I looked back at the HR manager, hoping to see some doubt. There was none. Only a printed letter slid across the table. Termination. Effective immediately. Security came in just like before. My access badge was taken. They waited while I packed a small box of my things. The walk out of the building was quiet, slow. No one said a word. I felt like I was shrinking with every step. That night, I sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by my packed office box. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there, staring at the wall. No. Everything I'd worked for was gone. My job, my reputation, my future in that industry. All wiped away by someone who never earned any of it. Then it all hit me at once. I cried until I couldn't breathe, hands gripping the edge of the couch like it might hold me up. But in the middle of all that pain, something sharp and clear cut through. He was careful, but not perfect. If he thought I'd just disappear, he was wrong. He'd built his trap with lies, and I'd tear it apart piece by piece. I didn't tell anyone what I planned. I stayed quiet, steady. After the breakdown, after the shock wore off, something inside me settled, cold, focused. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to find out exactly how he did it, and I was going to make him regret it. The first thing I did was message an old friend, Malik, someone I knew from my early days at the company. He worked in IT, had a sharp mind and a quiet nature. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but he replied within minutes. We met at a quiet cafe near the university campus. No one from the company would spot us there. I told him everything, what happened, what I suspected. He listened without interrupting, then leaned back and said one thing. He didn't just hack your account. He's been impersonating you. He explained that a shadow Gmail account had been created in my name, almost identical to my real one. From there, messages were sent to clients, files were downloaded, even notes forwarded to HR, crafted to sound like me, look like me, but filled with toxic language and subtle manipulation. All of it was traceable, Malik said, but only if we moved carefully. If we triggered something too soon, he could wipe it all. So I started collecting, quietly. Every time Malik found a login, I noted the time, date, IP address. We took screenshots, created backup. I bought an external drive, password protected, and saved everything there. I logged every email, every action tied to that fake account. Slowly, we began connecting it to his devices, his company credentials, even his home Wi-Fi. He was sloppy in small ways, logging into the fake account minutes after leaving meetings, using a company server while sending false messages. I was watching him now the way he had once watched me. Every meeting he joined, every file he touched, I traced. Malik helped me set up alerts. When he accessed certain folders or used suspicious keywords, I got a ping. I didn't tell anyone, not Jenna, not my family. The fewer people who knew, the better. I needed time, and I needed silence. He thought I was out of the picture. He'd won, but he kept showing off, boasting in team chats, making changes without oversight. His confidence made him reckless. I waited. I watched, and I built my wall of proof brick by brick. He destroyed my career with a smile. Now it was my turn to watch his world crack. A few weeks later, I signed a contract with one of our competitors. It wasn't a glamorous job, not at first. It was quiet, entry-level, mostly back-end process work. But I didn't care. I didn't want attention. I wanted access. The company had always been a rising threat to my old. They handled things differently, less ego, more results. It felt like the right place to watch and wait. No one at the new office knew what had happened to me. I kept my head down, worked hard, and earned trust without saying too much. I never mentioned the old company, never brought up names. But I stayed connected to someone still working there, Lena, one of the few who hadn't dropped me when things went bad. She believed me from the start. We messaged once a week, nothing obvious. Short texts. Code words. Enough to keep me updated. That's how I found out he had taken over my old team. He'd renamed it Strategy Innovation Unit. Told everyone he was streamlining operations, fixing broken systems. He even held a town hall about company culture, claiming he was cleaning up bad habits. That one made me laugh. Loud. But Lena told me something else. He was chasing a massive client, one I had worked on for almost a year. It had taken months of calls, meetings, proposals. The deal was nearly ready before I was forced out. Now he was pitching the final round, using the same slides I had built, the same strategy one had designed. He was going to close the deal, take the win, and no one would know the truth. Unless I stopped him. I didn't want revenge just for the sake of it. I wanted precision, something clean, something legal. And now I had a chance. The client, a national logistics chain, had very strict policies about transparency. Their leadership cared about ethics, about how firms treated their staff. I remembered that clearly. They once paused talks with a vendor over a leaked harassment issue. That was the opening. I started building a file. Nothing dramatic, just a clear, factual report. It included timestamps showing how their lead strategist had no record of involvement during the early planning phase. I inserted his fake qualifications, how he had no experience before being dropped into a senior title. Then I added one more thing, an anonymous tip about an internal fraud issue, suggesting they pause talks for ethical review. No names, no lies, just enough truth to raise questions. I sent it from a secure channel directly to the client's procurement director, using a VPN and a newly created identity. Then I waited. Back at my new job, everything felt calm on the surface. But underneath, I was listening, watching. 2 weeks later, Lena texted me. Client pulled out. Internal chaos. He's freaking out. I didn't smile. Not right away. I just sat at my desk and stared at the screen. He thought I was gone, that I'd vanished quietly, buried under fake reports and silence. But I was right here, and I just pulled the first thread. I knew how to hurt him, not with noise, but with precision. I had spent years helping build that company's structure, processes, and client strategies. I knew where the cracks were, and I knew exactly where to aim. Over the next week, I worked late into the night, putting together a dossier. Every lie he told, every file he altered, every fake credential he listed on his profile, I had it all. Malik had helped me trace login histories, match timestamps, even pull metadata from the files he edited under my... I cross-checked everything twice. There could be no mistakes. I added screenshots of his phony degrees and certifications. Most were easy to disprove. One school he listed didn't even offer the program he claimed to complete. Another had no record of him ever enrolling. It wasn't just a few stretched truths, it was full-on fabrication. And yet he'd used those lies to climb, to lead, to push me out. But I wasn't done. There was one more piece I needed, something undeniable. I reached out to Priya, his former assistant. She'd quit 6 months earlier without a word. No one asked why. But I had a guess. We met in a quiet cafe, the same one where I'd met Malik. She looked tired but curious. I told her everything, asked if she'd be willing to share her story. At first, she hesitated, said she just wanted to move on. But then, after a long silence, she nodded. He made my life hell, and no one believed me. So yeah, I'll sign it. Her written statement described how he cornered her in meetings, sent inappropriate messages, and once yelled at her until she cried for a mistake he made. She had screenshots. He never expected her to keep them. That was the final page in the file. I timed the drop carefully. The competitor I now worked for was preparing to pitch a new proposal to the same client he'd just lost. I knew there'd be attention on both firms, especially at the executive level. I sent the package directly to the board of directors at my old company. No name, no return address. Just a simple message. Due diligence matters. This file includes information about one of your senior leaders you may have missed. Inside were documents, images, statements. Nothing loud, but everything true. Then I waited. No calls, no messages, just silence. But I knew how these things worked. They'd start with an internal review. Maybe call for a closed-door meeting. He wouldn't see it coming. He'd walk in thinking he was running the show, and then the floor beneath him would start to crack. I didn't need credit. I didn't want applause. I just wanted the truth to finally land where it should, right on top of him. It started with a leak, just one email. It hit the media early on a Thursday morning. The headline was short but sharp. Whistleblower alleges fraud, misconduct at regional firm. Inside was a summary of the same file I had sent to the board, including redacted sections of Priya's statement and screenshots of the fake credentials. The report didn't name him directly, but anyone inside the company would know exactly who it pointed to. By noon, the board had called an emergency meeting. Phones buzzed, emails flew, and the building he used to strut through like a king turned into a pressure cooker. Employees weren't sure what was happening, but the tension spread fast. Lena messaged me, "He's losing it," yelled at someone in the hallway. That afternoon, the major client, already cautious after pulling out of the last deal, formally cut ties with the company. Publicly, they said it was a strategic redirection, but everyone knew. Word spread fast in our industry. People started asking questions. Stocks dipped, not drastically, but enough to rattle leadership. I sat across the street in a small coffee shop with big windows. From where I sat, I could see the office lobby, the rotating glass doors, the long stretch of reception. I watched as board members arrived, one by one. Some looked tense, others angry. He showed up late, in his usual tailored suit, but the swagger was gone. He paused at the entrance, staring down at his phone, pale and tense. He didn't look like the man who had walked me out with that smug smile. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Inside, the audit team was already at work. HR was reviewing logs. IT was scrubbing access records. Malik had sent me a message earlier. "They're tearing into everything. You were right to time it now." I didn't reply. I just kept watching. A few hours later, I saw him again, storming out this time. He wasn't alone. Two executives flanked him, one speaking in a sharp, clipped tone. His face was flushed. He looked stunned, confused, like the world had shifted and he couldn't catch up. He pulled out his phone, scrolled, typed, stared, probably looking for someone to blame, someone to fix it for him. But there was no one left to help. I didn't move from my seat. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching him stand on the sidewalk, helpless. It was surreal. This was the same man who once made me feel powerless, invisible. Now he was the one unraveling, and I didn't have to lift a finger in that moment. Everything was already in motion. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't begged. I had just told the truth, clearly, quietly, and at exactly the right time. And now, all that noise he made? It was finally catching up with him. The first call came that evening. I saw the name flash across my screen, Richard Holloway. My old boss. His father. The one who had looked me in the eye and said nothing while I was pushed out. I let the call ring out. Then came another. And another. He left no voicemail. Just silence between each attempt. Like he didn't know what to say or didn't want it recorded. I turned the phone face down on the table and went back to my work. The next morning, the calls continued, his personal number, then his assistant's. I ignored them all. I knew why he was reaching out. The board was asking questions, the media wasn't backing off, and the company was bleeding. He had finally connected the dots. He'd realized who had pulled the string that unraveled his son's carefully crafted image. That afternoon, I got a text from Lena. They're cleaning house. He's suspended until further notice. They're bringing in external auditors. I read it twice. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just sat still, letting it settle in. The company was finally seeing him for who he really was. And Richard? He was watching his legacy fall apart, piece by piece, just like he let mine fall without a word. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. There was silence on the line, then a deep breath. "I suppose congratulations are in order," he said, voice tight. I didn't answer right away. I let the pause stretch just a little longer than comfort allowed. "I assume you know what's happening," he continued. "I do." He sighed again, slower this time. "You could have come to me." "I did," I said calmly. "You chose to look the other way." Another pause. Then he asked, "What do you want?" It was the question he should have asked months ago. But now it was too late. "I don't want anything," I said. "I told you I didn't need your company. You needed mine." He didn't argue. For the first time, he had nothing to defend, no excuses left to offer. Only the quiet sound of a man realizing just how badly he had underestimated someone. "I didn't know it had gotten this far," he said finally. "No," I said. "You just didn't care." He started to speak again, but I cut the call. I sat in the silence after, phone resting in my hand. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't threatened him. I'd simply told the truth, and let him feel it. For months, they'd made me question everything I knew about myself. My work, my name, my place in that office. But now they were the ones grasping for answers. And all I had to do was let the phone keep ringing. A week later, I got an email from a board member I'd never spoken to directly before. It was brief, professional, and to the point. The board would like to meet. No details, no explanation, just a time, a place, and a request for confidentiality. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won out. The meeting wasn't in the usual office building. It was held at a neutral downtown conference room, quiet, upscale, away from headlines and office whispers. When I walked in, they were already seated, papers laid out neatly, faces unreadable. but I could tell from the way they looked at me that something had shifted. I was no longer a former employee. I was someone they needed. They didn't waste time. The chairwoman, a sharp woman named Elise, leaned forward and said, "We'd like you to come back." As COO, I didn't react. I kept my expression still, though inside my thoughts raced. After everything, after the lies, the silence, the betrayal, they wanted me back? I leaned back slowly and asked, "Under what terms?" They looked at each other. Elise answered again carefully. "Full operational control. A clean sweep of leadership. And he's out. Permanently." I didn't ask who she meant. We both knew. I let the silence sit for a moment before speaking. "I want full autonomy, hiring, restructuring, policy design. My team, my way." "Agreed," she said. And my name cleared. Not quietly, publicly. She nodded. "We'll issue a formal correction." I stood, shook her hand, and left without another word. 2 days later, I walked through the office lobby again, but this time I wasn't escorted. I wore the badge with my name and new title already printed. Employees turned and stared. Some smiled, unsure. Others whispered, but I didn't stop. He was in the elevator bay when I saw him, a box in his arms. His desk plant awkwardly tucked beside a framed photo of a car he didn't even own. His eyes met mine, and for a second he looked like he might say something. I didn't give him the chance. I walked past without a glance, my heels clicking against the polished floor. I didn't need to see his expression. I already knew. This time, he was the one being walked out. No applause, no smug goodbye. He thought I was finished, that I'd disappear, forgotten. But I rebuilt myself piece by piece and returned stronger, with proof, with purpose, and without apology. The seat they took from me? I came back for it, and claimed one even higher. I didn't come back for revenge. Not really. I came back for the truth, for my name, my work, and the people who believed in me. But watching him walk out with his box? That was a bonus I hadn't expected to enjoy quite that much. The office felt different now. Lighter. Colleagues who once kept their distance now greeted me with real warmth. Some apologized quietly. Others simply offered coffee and a smile, and that was enough. My new team looked to me with respect, not fear. They knew I'd earned every step back into that building. One of my first moves was launching a leadership program for women across departments. Mentorships, clear paths to promotion, and protections I never had. I didn't want anyone else to go through what I did. I wanted this place to be better than the one I left. It's strange. After everything, I feel calm. Not triumphant. Just settled. I didn't scream or burn bridges. I didn't fight in the way they expected. I moved quietly, strategically. I let the truth do the work. He underestimated me. They all did. That was their mistake. And in the end, I didn't just win my job back. I changed the game entirely. Sometimes the best way to get justice is to be underestimated first. So what would you have done in my place? Walked away and moved on, or stayed silent while they got away with everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know. And hey, if this story hit you even a little, tap subscribe and hit the bell. There's plenty more where this came from.